I'm Ethan, and everything in my life felt stable until the night I stumbled upon a truth sharp enough to slice through every NI letter 1EC1M tin I had in my relationship. I wasn't looking for trouble, but trouble found me anyway when I saw Lena in a dimly lit bar, laughing and holding another man as if I had never existed. That moment cracked something inside me, and from that crack, every suspicion I'd ignored began to pour out. The late-night meetings, the sudden weekend trips, the phone always flipped face down, none of it felt random anymore. What I didn't know then was that this discovery was CH letter 1EC9, LAD stroke I letter 1EC3, MKH letter 1EDF, ID stroke letter 1EA7U. A doorway into a twisting maze of lies, manipulation, and betrayal more elaborate than anything I could have imagined. And once I stepped through, there was no turning back. It all started with something so small that, at first, I almost brushed it off. A glance. A gesture. A moment that didn't fit the pattern I thought I knew by heart. That night in the bar kept replaying in my mind, looping endlessly until every detail felt like a warning sign I had failed to notice. I kept thinking about the way Lena's hand rested on that man's shoulder, how naturally she leaned into him, how her smile looked too familiar to be meant for a stranger. The more I tried to rationalize it, the more the unease pressed down on me like a weight I couldn't shake off. I confronted her on a quiet evening when she walked through the door, humming as if nothing in the world could possibly be wrong. I asked her to sit down because we needed to talk, and the moment the words left my mouth, something in her expression flickered. Not guilt. Not fear. Just annoyance, as if I had interrupted something trivial. I showed her the screenshots, the messages, the hotel reservation confirmations. I expected shock or denial, or at least a moment of hesitation. Instead, she laughed. A short, sharp, mocking laugh that sent a chill down my spine. She leaned back on the couch and crossed her arms like she was evaluating a mundane complaint. Then she told me I was being dramatic. Those were her exact words. She said people in modern relationships didn't owe each other exclusivity unless it was explicitly stated, and according to her, she had never promised me anything. It was surreal hearing her twist the reality we had lived together for more than a year. Every shared plan, every holiday, every moment that felt genuine, she brushed them off like they were nothing more than social obligations. When I pressed her, she only grew colder. She claimed she had the right to see other people, and that any hurt I felt came from my own insecurity. She accused me of invading her privacy, of making assumptions, of trying to control her life. It was a masterclass in gaslighting. She flipped every fact upside down, reframed every lie as a misunderstanding, and blamed me for reacting like a person with a normal sense of betrayal. At times, she even smirked, as though she was enjoying watching me struggle to make sense of the chaos she had created. I asked her about Marcus, and that was when her expression shifted again. For just a second, there was panic, but it vanished quickly, replaced by a dismissive shrug. She said he didn't matter, and that I shouldn't concern myself with things that were outside my relationship with her. According to her, we lived in a world where commitment was a social construct, and I needed to adapt instead of clinging to outdated expectations. Hearing her say those words made me feel like I was talking to a stranger wearing her face. When I told her I was going to tell Marcus the truth, the calm mask finally cracked. She stood up abruptly, her voice rising in a tone I had never heard from her before. She said I had no right to interfere in her other relationships. She threatened to ruin me if I tried. She accused me of being vindictive, obsessive, and unstable, all because I refused to let the lie continue. By the end of the conversation, she wasn't apologizing. She wasn't explaining. She wasn't even trying to deny anything. She simply acted as though I was the problem for refusing to accept her double life as something reasonable. And in that moment, I realized the truth wasn't just that she had betrayed me. It was that she had never viewed our relationship as something real to begin with. I reached out to Marcus the next morning, long before I had time to second-guess myself. I didn't know what kind of man he was, how he would react, or whether he already suspected something. All I knew was that he deserved the truth just as much as I did. I sent him a simple message first, asking if we could talk privately about something important concerning Lena. It didn't take long for him to reply. His tone was polite but uneasy, like he already sensed something was wrong. When we finally got on a video call, the look on his face told me he had no idea what was coming. The moment Lena realized she could no longer manipulate either of us, everything about her behavior shifted into something darker and far more unhinged. At first, she tried to play the victim, sending dramatic paragraphs about how we had teamed up to emotionally sabotage her. She claimed she was being ganged up on and unfairly judged by men who couldn't handle a confident woman. But when neither Marcus nor I fed into her theatrics, the tone of her messages changed overnight. She became accusatory, aggressive, and relentless. She insisted everything we discovered was taken out of context, despite the fact that every piece of evidence contradicted her. And when the lies stopped working, she escalated. The corporate investigation into Lena's financial misconduct wrapped up faster than anyone expected, and the results were devastating for her. She was suspended immediately, escorted out of the building by security while coworkers whispered behind their desks. For someone who thrived on control and perception, that public walkout was the first real crack in her carefully curated image. Within days, the company issued a formal notice of termination, citing misuse of funds, falsified expense reports, and repeated violations of policy. They demanded repayment of all unauthorized charges, an amount far larger than she could ever afford. Without a stable income, her life began to unravel at a speed even she couldn't manipulate her way out of. She lost her company car, which she'd relied on for nearly everything. Rent payments bounced. Her utilities were cut off twice in a single month. Landlords don't accept emotional manipulation as currency, and soon enough, she had to pack her belongings into storage bins and move back in with her parents. For someone who once bragged about independence and ambition, the humiliation was almost unbearable for her. Meanwhile, Marcus's circle, his friends, family, colleagues, had all seen the evidence. They knew exactly what she had done, not only to him but to me and to her workplace. Any attempt she made to spin the story collapsed instantly. When she tried to claim he was abusive, screenshots disproved her. When she hinted he was controlling, mutual friends reminded her that he had always treated her with patience and generosity. Eventually, people stopped entertaining her narratives altogether. They stopped replying to her messages, stopped defending her, stopped making excuses for her behavior. Her social world shrank rapidly, leaving her isolated except for a handful of acquaintances who didn't know what she had done yet. She tried blaming me at one point, saying I had orchestrated everything to sabotage her future. But her accusations fell flat when everyone saw how meticulously she had lied to both me and Marcus. Her parents confronted her after seeing the evidence themselves, demanding explanations she couldn't provide. They had always believed she was impulsive but harmless. Now they were seeing the consequences of her choices stack up in real time. As her life spiraled downward, her sense of entitlement didn't fade. She sent Marcus long, emotional messages about how he had ruined her career by reporting her. She told me I had destroyed her reputation by exposing the truth. She even tried to guilt both of us by saying she wouldn't have hit rock bottom if we had just stayed silent. Neither of us responded. Silence was the only boundary she couldn't twist or manipulate. Her fall from grace didn't end with her job or her social life. She struggled to find new employment because the industry she worked in was tightly connected, and word of her termination spread quickly. A resume gap meant nothing when former coworkers quietly warned hiring managers to look deeper. Every interview turned into a dead end, and each rejection chipped away at whatever pride she had left. By that point, it was clear that her downfall wasn't the result of a single mistake. It was the result of every lie she told, every scheme she ran, every person she burned while believing she could outrun the consequences. And now those consequences had finally caught up to her, all at once, with no escape routes left to hide in. The deeper Lena sank, the more her behavior spiraled into something desperate and erratic. Losing her job, her friends, and the version of herself she had crafted pushed her into a place where logic no longer guided her actions. Instead of reflecting on what she had done, she clung to the belief that everything falling apart around her was someone else's fault. And with that belief, she launched herself into a series of frantic efforts to regain control. She started by portraying herself as a tragic victim online. She posted photos of hospital rooms pulled from Google, cropping the corners so no one could see the watermarks. She wrote long captions about stress-induced collapses and emotional trauma caused by betrayal, none of which had any basis in reality. People who didn't know the full story sent her sympathy at first, but her patterns became obvious quickly. The posts were inconsistent, the timelines didn't add up, and some followers noticed identical images on stock photo websites. When she was confronted, she deleted comments, blocked users, and doubled down, claiming she was being bullied during a medical crisis. Her next move was even more twisted. She created new dating profiles under different names, using old pictures of herself edited to look slightly altered. The bios were dramatic, painting her as a strong woman who had escaped a toxic relationship. But in a moment of spite, she went further. She listed my phone number on one of the profiles, encouraging strangers to text for fun. Within hours, my phone was flooded with inappropriate messages from men who had no idea they were participating in her revenge. I documented every message, every screenshot, knowing it would matter later. Marcus wasn't spared either. She sent emails to his family claiming he had emotionally damaged her beyond repair. She even tried contacting his ex-girlfriend, hoping to gather ammunition to use against him. But no one believed her. Not anymore. Her reputation had become so tainted by her own actions that even her most dramatic claims were met with skepticism or outright dismissal. Then came the moment everything crossed the final line. One evening, as I returned home from work, I noticed something off. My front door wasn't fully closed. At first, I thought I had been careless. But the second I stepped inside, I felt the tension in the air. Lights were on that I hadn't left on. A chair had been moved. And then I saw her standing in the hallway, trembling, furious, and disheveled. She said she needed closure, but the way she invaded my space felt nothing like closure and everything like a threat. I kept my distance, told her to leave immediately, and when she refused, I took out my phone and dialed the police. Hearing the operator's voice seemed to snap something in her. She bolted out of the door before officers arrived. But the report was filed. The evidence was clear. With the screenshots, the messages, the harassment, the unwanted visits, and now the attempted break-in, the court approved a restraining order within days. For 6 months, she was legally barred from contacting me in any way. She tried to protest, but the judge didn't entertain her excuses. Her pattern of behavior spoke louder than anything she could say. By then, even she must have realized there was no one left to manipulate, no one left to blame, no one left to pull into her collapsing world. But instead of facing the truth, she continued drifting deeper into denial, convinced that the consequences swallowing her life were somehow unjust. In the end, she wasn't defeated by what Marcus and I uncovered. She was defeated by her own refusal to stop digging the hole she eventually fell into completely. In the months that followed, life slowly settled into something steady again. Marcus and I still spoke occasionally, not out of obligation, but out of a quiet understanding that comes from surviving the same storm. We had both rebuilt our routines, our confidence, and the pieces of ourselves that had been shaken loose by everything Lena had done. There was no lingering anger, just a kind of calm acceptance that some people create their own chaos and try to drag others into it. Lena, from what little we heard, continued blaming everyone but herself. She drifted between temporary jobs, strained family relationships, and attempts to rewrite the past in ways no one believed anymore. Her downfall wasn't dramatic anymore. It was quiet, continuous, and shaped entirely by choices she refused to own. As for me, I learned to value peace more than answers. I stopped replaying the what-ifs and focused instead on what I could control, my future. And in that future, the truth remained simple. The lies she built, the damage she caused, and the consequences she faced were hers alone. I had finally stepped out of the shadow of her chaos, and I wasn't looking back.